Hello everyone and welcome back to Fantastic Forests. Today we're going to be looking at what is fungi. Now this is the first video in our series that focuses on the concept of fungi, and we'll have a few more videos following that will talk about different aspects of fungi, but right now we're just going to look at some of the main ideas and the key ideas of what fungi is with Miss Liberty. What is fungi? Now this can be a little bit of a complicated question. Some people have hypothesized that perhaps it's some kind of animal. There's been rumors going around that is linked to the animal kingdom. That's not in fact true. Other people assume that it must be a plant as it grows in nature, that it has to be some kind of plant of some sort, but it is not. Fungi, a very important thing you need to know, the first thing you need to know about fungi is it has its own kingdom. So there's the animal kingdom, there's the plant kingdom, and there is also the fungi kingdom. Now we could say that perhaps the king of the kingdom, the most famous fungi of them all, would be the mushroom. So when you think about fungi, the first thing that comes to your mind is probably some kind of mushroom, similar to what we have in our dinner, what we might have on our pizza. So that is a very important thing you need to remember. So fungi has its own kingdom. Now that you know the fungi is a kingdom of its own right, we need to have a closer look at what is in the fungi kingdom. I said the mushroom is perhaps the king of the kingdom, but like all good kingdoms, he's not the only part. So there are also things such as molds classed as fungi. Okay, so if you have perhaps old bread that's been sat around for a week or so, if you have fruit that perhaps is getting old and is starting to break down, then it will start to grow mold, and that mold is in fact a fungi. We have our trusty mushrooms, so there's lots of different kinds of mushrooms, and we'll be taking a closer look at that further on in our series to see what mushrooms do, some different types of them as well. But yes, mushrooms are one of the most important parts and one of the biggest parts of the fungi kingdom. And last but not least, we have yeast. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever heard of yeast before, but you have definitely eaten it. Yeast is in all kinds of things that we eat and drink. The most common one that I'm sure you have all eaten is bread. So yeast is a very, very small organism. It's made of one cell. So us humans, we're made of hundreds of thousands of cells, but yeast is one cell. So it's very, very small, and it's hard for us to see it. We can't see it with our eye. There has to be lots and lots of yeast cells all together for us to actually be able to see them without some kind of microscope or something. So when we think about the fungi kingdom, when we talk about the fungi kingdom, these are the three main parts that we're going to be looking at. Okay, so we've got the molds, we've got the mushrooms, and we've got the yeast. As the mushrooms are the most common and the biggest part of the fungi kingdom, that is what we're going to be focusing on throughout the rest of this series, okay? Another very important part and a very important role of the fungi kingdom is they are classed as decomposers. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers talking about this when they studied food chains at school, but decomposers are a vital part in the food chain of everyone, of us humans, of animals, of insects, birds, everything on the planet. We all rely on our decomposers. So things like mushrooms are a great decomposer. So they actually feed off of other organisms. They feed off of other living things, usually other living things that have died, perhaps a branch that's been cut off of a tree. If that lies on the forest floor, then the fungi, the mushrooms, will start to grow and use the nutrients, will use the minerals and things from the decomposing wood, and they will use it to feed themselves and to grow and flourish. So that's why they don't class as plants, because in fact they do not need to use photosynthesis to survive. I'm sure you remember all plants need photosynthesis to make their own food. They use their leaves to create their own food. Now, similarly to animals, which is where some people get confused, decomposers do not create their own food. They do eat other living things, but they don't eat, they can't move like us. So I'm sure you've never seen a mushroom running around in the woods. They also don't have a digestive system. They have a much more complex, different way of processing their food. So they will let out specific chemicals that will help break down their foods, and then they'll just be able to, through their roots, basically drink up all of the nutrients they need so that they can grow and develop throughout their life cycle. So that is why they have their own kingdom, and it's also why they class as decomposers and play a vital role to breaking down debris and dead things in our environments and enriching the soil and making everything be able to continue growing and to continue the food chain continuously. Fun fact, the world's biggest organism is in fact a mushroom. I bet you never thought that. I've heard lots of people talking about blue whales and Indian elephants and all sorts, but I have only recently heard about giant mushrooms. So I thought I should share it with you too. The world's biggest organism is in fact a honey mushroom, and it can be found in the United States of America. Now, something you might not know about mushrooms, which might explain this whole story of how they can have the biggest organism in the world that's a mushroom, is that most of the mushroom is actually underground. What we see of the mushroom, what we eat of the mushroom, is only a very small part of the actual mushroom organism. So when we think of a mushroom, maybe think about an iceberg. I'm sure you've all heard that what you see of an iceberg on top of the water is only the tip of the iceberg, and it goes a lot further down underground. Mushrooms work in exactly the same way. So next time you're eating your mushrooms for dinner, maybe think about all the rest of the mushroom that must be left somewhere that you're missing out on. So that's it for today, everyone. That is our introduction to the fungi kingdom and to mushrooms. Now, in the next videos, we're going to be talking about all kinds of things, all related to mushrooms. So we'll be looking at different parts of mushrooms, we'll be looking at different types of mushrooms, and much more. So don't miss out on it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you can follow the rest of the Fantastic Forest series. If you missed out on my videos about trees, please go back in the series and check them out, because I'm sure you'll find them really, really interesting when you're out and about in the woods. And if you learned something in today's video, please leave a thumbs up, and we can see how many people are learning about our fantastic forests. See you next time.